the Indian Airlines Flight 814, also known as IC-814, and the ill-fated aircraft which was waiting on the runway of Tribhuvan International Airport, Kathmandu, Nepal, on February 24th December 1999 to go for his departure, to left for his departure, which was Indira Gandhi International Airport, New Delhi. When the flight left the Nepal aerospace, entered the Indian aerospace, the flight was hijacked by the 5 terrorists, those who belongs to the group called Harkat-ul-Mujahideen. The Harkat-ul-Mujahideen was a group which belongs to the Pakistans, was formed in Pakistan, was Pakistani establishment or Pakistani army. You can say the Pakistani army. So to understand that why they did so and what is the agenda or what was the goal behind the hijacking the aircraft, we have to understand the past, that why the Pakistan is a nation which harbored the terrorisms to hurt the different interests of India and the other countries. To understand the menace of terrorism in Pakistan, we have to get back in 1970s, because in 1970s Pakistan's actually adopted the concept of terrorisms to harbor their ideas or to push their ideas in subcontinent and the different other countries, because at that time the world was going through the Cold War days, and at that time the Soviet Union, the rivalry between Soviet Union and the United States was at peak. At that time, in the 1979, Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. That rattled the United States, because United States did not want Soviet Union to invade Afghanistan, did not want Soviet Union to reach the Indian Ocean, because Soviet Union was actually trying to reach the Indian Ocean by capturing some of the land of Pakistan. And at that time the Soviet Union was under the ideology of communism. So the United States, being a capitalistic country, was against the communism. So they funded the terrorism in Afghanistan through Pakistan after the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979. The United States got desperate to shoo away the Soviet Union from the land of Afghanistan. They got someone in the form of an ally. At that time, that was Pakistan. Pakistan happily accepted billions of dollars from the United States to fund some terrorist groups, those who were active at that time in Afghanistan. They created the terrorist organization to hurt the interest of Soviet Union in Afghanistan. And in 1979, the United States invested billions to set up madrasas along the border of Afghanistan in Pakistan to produce the jihadis or terrorists, to send them into the Afghanistan to fight against the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union got disrupted due to the attack from the jihadis at that time. They got jittered because they lost billions of dollars due to their unnecessary invasions in Afghanistan at that time. So therefore, after the Gorbachev's entry into the throne of the Soviet Union decided to withdraw their troops. That is why in 1989 the Soviet Union left Afghanistan. That left and void in Afghanistan, and that was nurtured by Pakistan. Pakistan invested the money the United States sent to hurt the interest of Soviet Union at that time in Afghanistan. They invested to create the different kinds of terrorist organization, to do the different kinds of things, to push the agenda of Pakistan in the subcontinent, especially in India. They diverted those terrorists towards India in its eastern border. After the exit of the Soviet Union, there was several terrorist attacks in India, primarily in Indian Kashmir. In 1991, Pakistani jihadis entered Indian Kashmir and killed several of Kashmiri Hindus. They raped and they hanged several Hindus because they wanted to create Kashmir a Muslim state, a not the Muslim dominated states, a pure Muslim state, to fund their agenda to capture the Kashmir. Because after turning that state Islam, they tried to capture the things through the ideology by invoking the battle based on ideology. So to invoke the battle based on ideology, which was Islam, they created so many heads. And among those heads, the Masood Azhar was one of them. The Masood Azhar at that time was running the terrorist organization called Harkatul Ansar. In 1994, Masood Azhar was traveling in an auto rickshaw in Kashmir. At that time in auto rickshaw, he was with Sajjad Afghani. The Sajjad Afghani was the founder of Harkatul Mujahideen, the terrorists, those who were responsible for hijacking the IC-814 belongs to the group called Harkatul Mujahideen, which was Sajjad Afghani's groups. So they were arrested in 1994. Actually, the Masood Azhar at that time entered India using a fake Portuguese passport. They entered India to create a mayhem in Indian territory, particularly in Kashmir, to push the agenda of Pakistani state. So at that time they were with other two terrorists called Omar Shahid Sheikh and Ilyas Kashmiri. I will going to talk about these two because these two terrorists are very much responsible of hurting the interest of United States. And we will going to talk about these terrorists, particularly the Omar Shahid Sheikhs, in the latter part. So let's come into the IC-814. The IC-814 at that time was piloted by 37-year-old Captain Devi Sharon and the first officer Rajendra Kumar with the 58-year-old flight engineer Anil Kumar Jagia. So those three were there at the helm of that flight, the ill-fated flight. So after the hijacking the aircraft, the hijackers were trying to get that aircraft in Karachi airport, but the fuels was not there. There was not enough fuel. So to get the fuel, they have to land in Amritsar airport. There was a chance for the Indian security officer to raid, but the raid was not done. So the flight left for its destination in Lahore. Actually, the flight was on the way to the Lahore and asking the Pakistani ATC to land in Lahore, but the Pakistani government or Pakistani establishments did not allow, because they were not in the position to take the responsibility of the terrorist attack. Because after having the responsibility, after accepting the responsibility of the hijacking, the Pakistan received the tremendous pressures from its allies. At that time, the Pakistan allies were the United States and the Europe. So, but they denied the aircraft first. For that, they turn off the lights, all the lights and the navigational aids at the airport to prevent the landing. But the plane have to land. Otherwise, the Captain Sharan attempted to crash land without navigational aids and the light. So, after watching that thing, that their plan was about to get failed, so they allowed the aircraft land in the Lahore airport, but they forced the aircraft to flee, to left the airport, and the aircraft was on the way to the Dubai. But the Dubai authorities also did not allow them, but was forced to land them because there was no fuel to fly the plane. So then after in Dubai, the Indian authorities asked the Dubai authorities that the Indian authorities was ready to raid the aircraft to free the aircraft from the hijackers, but the Dubai authorities did not allow them. So the flight was allowed to fly, and the hijackers was actually on the way to the Kandahar, Afghanistan. At that time, the Kandahar or Afghanistan was under the rule of Taliban, and the Taliban was the creation of Pakistan. The Pakistan created Taliban after the Soviet Union left the Afghanistan. The Taliban was the baby of Pakistan. So the Taliban was forced to land. Actually, Taliban was not interested or not interested to get into the matter, which was very contentious at that time. But the Taliban or the Taliban leadership was threatened by the Pakistani leadership, that because at that time the Taliban leadership's families were there in Pakistan. So the Pakistan threatened Taliban that if they were not allowed to land the aircraft in Kandahar, then they will going to hurt their family. So the Pakistani authorities actually compelled the Afghan authorities or Taliban to allow the aircraft land in Kandahar. So after landing the Kandahar, the negotiation began. During the negotiations, there was a surprising character. The surprising character is today's National Security Advisor, the Ajit Doval. Ajit Doval did the talking with the terrorist organizations and came up with the demands. The demands was that they wanted Indian authorities to free the three terrorists. The three terrorists was the Masood Azhar, Ahmed Omar Shahid Sheikh, and a Kashmiri militant Mustaq Ahmed Zargar. These three terrorists, and they were asked for the bodies of Sajjad Afghani, who was dead at the time of jailbreak. Those who were under the garb of the Pakistani intelligence ISI. The ISI was helping them to negotiate with the Indian authorities. The Ajit Doval came to know about that because he was a spy, and there was no way that his spies would going to escape. The two spies, those who were present at that time in Kandahar. Among those two spies, the one was Lieutenant General and the another one was the major of the Pakistani ISI. And those two was apron. They were behaving like an Taliban, but the Ajit Doval came to understand that they were not Taliban. They were actually belongs to the Pakistani ISI. They were conducting the hijacking. They were coordinating with the hijackers then what to do, what not to do. So they after the hijacking, even before the hijacking, these terrorists means Masood Azhar, Omar Sheikhs, these terrorists was organizing hit job in India to free other terrorists. After the arrest of the Masood Azhar, a fake threat was released from a group called Al-Farhan. Al-Farhan was led by the Abdul Hamid Al-Turki, Al-Farhan was a creation of the ISI as a shadow organizations. So they shout for the release of the Masood Azhar. So and according to the Masood Azhar, the Abdul Hamid Al-Turki was he was an low intellect man. He was an titular king of that organizations of Al-Farhan. Actually, all the things was being done by the ISI. After the release of the Masood Azhar, he was painted as an hero or a Ghazi in the Pakistan. And after his release, he dissolves those two organizations, Harkat-ul Ansar, which was run by him, and the another organization was Sajjad Afghani's organization, Harkat-ul Mujahideen. So he dissolved those two organizations, make one organization called Jaish-e-Mohammed. Jaish-e-Mohammed, after the release of the Masood Azhar, the Jaish-e-Mohammed created mayhem in India. The Indian government handed over this case to the Central Investigation Agency or the Central Bureau of Investigations, who charged the 10 peoples with the hijacking. Among them, the 5 were the hijackers who were absconding in Pakistan at that time, and even today they were absconding, but 2 of them has been shot dead in Pakistan in recent days. The one was Zafarullah Zamali and the another was Zahur Mistri. And during the trial on February 5, 2008, a special anti-hijacking Patiala High Court sentenced the rest of the three. The 7 was not found. The 7 was absconding in Pakistan. The 3 was there in India. Those 3 was charged with the hijacking charges because they actually helped those terrorists to provide the logistics, to provide the guns, to provide the different kinds of other things, to provide the plans under the garb of the several other peoples, because at that time the tickets were provided by the organizations which were in Nepal. Those organizations were being run by the another dead terrorist, the Dawood Ibrahim. The Dawood Ibrahim actually involved in this case, and his organizations, the organizations of his actually responsible to providing the tickets to those terrorists, to providing the gun to those terrorists. On February 5, 2008, a special anti-hijacking Patiala House Court sentenced all 3 accused, namely Abdul Latif, Yusuf Nepali and the Dilip Kumar Bhujel, to life imprisonment.